The foundation for our great teachings that we call Science of Mind is that you're already holy. There's nothing you need to do. You don't have to forgive enough, let go enough, be willing enough, or any of the enough models. Because as soon as you do one of those, they write another book about the newer enough models. And we get busy with our rituals. We hold our palms up so we can be receptive. Although if you God, you seek us within, who are you receiving from? Don't ask. Okay, I got my palms up so I can be receptive. I breathe in through my nose, out through my mouth. I raise my kundalini energy. We're so busy doing all that stuff, we forget that you're already holy. You are already the crowning achievement of the living God. When I came in this morning, I was upstairs, and then I came and watched the singers prepare. And there was a little voice inside my head that said, "Take off your shoes. You're standing in holy ground." What you have created here is a miracle in and of itself, where we come together as family, a spiritual family, where we're safe, where we're loved, where we're empowered. Before I get started, I want to acknowledge my life partner, Maria Graff. She texted me this morning, she texted me last night. She said, "I want you to know that I am with you." And I want to take this moment to acknowledge her and tell her thank you. And she said, "You've got to button your coat and move away from the podium so they can see this." I'm going to start this morning by reading an article that I wrote. It was for the International New Thought Alliance, for their quarterly publication. As I was preparing to write the article, I thought, Terry, these aren't a bunch of new kids on the block. These are some of the greatest teachers around the world. And so you can step up and speak to them and tell them the truth, how you hold it. And I was a little shy or something about reading this article because it jumps right into what we're talking about. I see the radiant life of God that you are. But I'll tell you, knowing Dr. Petra, I went to my first Science of Mind church almost 40 years ago. Came down the stairs because the minister had seen me and I had been introduced to him the week before, and I was going to sneak out the back door. But when I came down the stairs and started for the door, he waved, and I thought, geez, now I've got to go say hello to him. So I walked over and shook his hand and told him how much I enjoyed his talk and stuff, and I turned and was trying to figure out which door to go to. And this beautiful blonde woman came up to me and said, "You're new here, aren't you?" And I said, "Well, this is my second time." And she says, "Well, let me personally welcome you. My name is Petra." And she took me around and introduced me to people. I watched this woman grow. I was there when she started taking classes. Her vision of what she was going to bring to her people, her congregation, those that she could touch. And here you are. And it's not just Petra. That's why I acknowledged you. You cannot have a center like this with just the figureheads, just the leaders. It's got to be the people. When they broke for you to hug each other, I stood up here and you could see the love flowing between you. An inclusive love. It wasn't a clique because I've been here 2 years and you've only been, it was this inclusive loving one another. That's what Science of Mind offers us. The opportunity to come together as individuals and explore the truth. This is the article. New Thought and the promise within its teachings was my only hope of taking control of some of the circumstances in my life. I was attempting to heal a supposedly incurable infection in my spine, and my focus was on how to use the principles explored throughout our teachings that addresses consciousness creating reality. In summary, I got well. I beat 1,000,000 to 1 odds and created perfect health. But my ability to create the health I wanted did not come from just learning how to take charge of my mind and my body. My miracle of healing really came from the realizing my spiritual nature, because it was the truth of my spiritual nature that allowed me to address my human circumstances with divine authority. And coming to terms with my divine self was not an easy task, because I had my spiritual identity tied to human characteristics. In the book, What the Great Religions Believe, Joseph Greer writes, in the 13th century A.D., a renowned Hebrew language scholar, notice Hebrew language scholar, known as Moses ben Maimon, opens his book, The Guide for the Perplexed, with a chapter to clarify the statement in the Bible that man is made in God's image. Moses ben Maimon argues that the word image led men to believe that God had the form of a human being. God had a physical body. And further, if they did not believe God as having a body and other aspects similar to their own in appearance and temperament, they would have to deny even the existence of God. What he says, what followed was that we made God in man's image. And I mean the image of a male human being. We also gave God human personality. We gave God a human personality with likes, dislikes, and a list of things one must do to be in good favor with him. And within these ideas was the threat that if you did not agree with their interpretation, you would incur another of God's personality traits, his wrath. Even in New Thought, we perpetuate the idea of God having human traits. We have our own list. God is good. God is love. God is peace. God is health. And of course we have God is not. God is not fear. God is not confusion, and so on. For me, the problem of these godlike human characteristics was that I was afraid. I was angry. I was confused. And I was sick. And what came up was, how could I begin to identify with my divine nature when I was so far from the perfection of God? So naturally, I get involved with the enough concepts, the ideas and studies of the things that might need to be fixed before anyone could claim their wholeness and divine authority. And although I did find valuable information and insights in this search, I also got a longer list of what I needed to do to be holy. But as I practiced the disciplines and the rituals that we are exploring in our New Thought movement, such as affirmation, denial, affirmative prayer, spiritual mind treatment, meditation, and others, I began to have an experience that the wholeness, the wonder I was seeking about my own existence, was not something I could achieve by doing something enough. My spiritual identity was not something I could earn or attain. It was something I just needed to accept.
So do you know you're part of our online community? Every time you watch us, you belong to CSL Dallas, and we're so happy that you're part of our community. And we love providing you this kind of spiritual message. So if you want to keep seeing this, please donate. You can donate at csldallas.org/give, or you can text 972-954-4404. Be part of our community and sit back and enjoy the message.
My spiritual identity was not something I could earn or attain. It was something I just needed to accept. I want you to get that. I began to have an experience that the wholeness and wonder I was seeking about my own existence was not something I could achieve by doing something enough. My spiritual identity was not something I could earn or attain. It was something I just needed to accept. There may be people in your life or old beliefs that lead you to think that you are not the living Christ, the physical incarnation of the divine, or what Jesus was referring to by saying, "You are the sons and daughters of the Most High." But you do not have to believe those ideas anymore. So how does one begin to accept the truth that Jesus said would set you free? In the book Jonathan Livingston Seagull, the path is expressed simply as, you begin by knowing you've already arrived. The foundation for our great teachings that we call Science of Mind is that you're already holy. There's nothing you need to do. You don't have to forgive enough, let go enough, be willing enough, or any of the enough models. Because as soon as you do one of those, they write another book about the newer enough models. And we get busy with our rituals. We hold our palms up so we can be receptive. Although if you God, you seek us within, who are you receiving from? Don't ask. Okay, I got my palms up so I can be receptive. I breathe in through my nose, out through my mouth. I raise my Kundalini energy. We're so busy doing all that stuff, we forget that you're already holy. You are already the crowning achievement of the living God. That's the foundation for our teachings. It's the foundation for our prayer work, for spiritual mind treatment. There's one divine presence, and that divine presence and I are one. It's something that you and I need to accept. And I know it can be challenging. I remember laying in the hospital, going to the bathroom in a plastic bag with tubes running out of my body, and the doctor saying, "You're never going to get well. You're going to live in a wheelchair the rest of your life. You're going to go to the bathroom. You're going to lose the control of your bowels and your bladder. And you're probably going to be sexually impotent." That was the one that really got my attention. It was hard to lay there in bed and say, "I am the living Christ." I didn't even know if you could say things like that without bolts of lightning coming in. But I'll tell you, that is the truth that sets us free. This is what Ernest talks about. What allows you to walk on this planet with one having authority so you can use the tools of affirmation and focus and choice of destination and how to use your imagination and take charge of the image-making part of the mind. What allows you to move into using those kinds of tools is the idea that I'm holy. I'm God expressing uniquely as me. Ernest is real clear. You're God expressing uniquely as woman. Right now, you don't have to do anything to be that. That's who you are. You're God expressing uniquely as man. And from that, we move into human existence as one Having authority. That's what allows us to talk about making your dreams come true. That's what allows us to understand what Ernest says, never take no for an answer, for the law knows only to agree, and it will present you with bondage just as easy as it will freedom. But the knowledge that we can change what has been bondage into a new freedom is in fact the truth that sets us free. That's what we have here. That's that enthusiasm. Enthusiasm, full of spirit. That's what that means. What would it take for you and I to move from here today knowing that we're God-informed? It doesn't mean everything's going to be perfect from here on out. I still have challenges. Peter would probably tell you she has challenges. I know her. She speaks from her heart, her truth. It's not some academic thing she learned somewhere. But here together, you feel it when you walk in this room that you're here with family. Here you're loved. Here you're accepted. Here we have the courage with each other to explore truths that heretofore you got killed for. I invite you to, I want to read you what Ernest says on page 169 of Living the Science of Mind. And I invite you this morning to close your eyes and listen with your heart. Here today, you can accept the truth of what this speaks about. Here today, we can stand on the shoulders of those who came before us and finally be free of doubt. This is how Ernest puts it. The freedom, the power, the joy you seek already exists, and it exists in your perception of who you are. And for each of us to begin to realize the promise of divine life, we must personalize the attributes that heretofore we've given only to God. Hence, it is not enough to say that God is free, which of course is a true statement. But we must begin to make this freedom, this joy, this power personal. Here this morning with your spiritual family, hear what he's speaking about. Be willing to stand boldly in the truth of your own existence. For Ernest goes on to say, we must begin to accept that the freedom of God is my freedom. We must begin to accept that the power of God is my power. We must begin to accept that the mind of God is my mind, the strength of God is my strength, and the joy of God is my joy. For when we own this, when we feel these truths are true about us right in the pit of our own guts, we begin to move throughout our lives no longer with just faith in God. We move and act and feel with the faith of God. And from there, we can use these magnificent principles we teach, the tools we have been learning to create miracle after miracle after miracle, because we understand that our word carries power and divine authority. I invite you to open your eyes. This is what this center offers you. It offers you an opportunity to explore ideas and truths that heretofore were only given in the ancient mystery schools. The Magi that taught how to use these principles to create what in the old days was called magic, not sleight of hand, magic. It came from the Magi, the ancient Persian mystery schools, who were the three wise men that came to visit Jesus at his birth. They brought the idea that it's time we take these secret teachings that have been in the various mystery schools, we take them to humanity. And that's what's offered you here. To stand boldly in your own magnificence. To be able to not only say, I'm not my past, I'm not my prognosis, I'm not even my beliefs. To stand boldly and not just say, I am not, but to claim just as boldly, I am God expressing uniquely as me. I am that essence. On page 121 of Living the Science of Mind says, whatever you believe to be true about God, declare that to be the truth about yourself. For he goes on and says, our union with the divine. On page 180, he says, our union with the divine is not that we are one with God, or that God, or one with God. For these imply separation. The truth is that you are of God, some part of God. It's hard to get that. It's hard to own that. It's hard to language it, because when we go to do that, we go, well, yeah, but God is pure love and I have anger. God is pure this and I'm that. And that's what we have done. We have confused our human characteristics with our divine nature. Well, if you were really the living Christ, you wouldn't have any fear. I had fear. If you were really the living Christ, the essence of God, you wouldn't have any anger. I had anger. And then I found Science of Mind that starts with the idea that you're already perfect. In that spiritual essence. It says nothing about your results and how your consciousness is creating various realities. You're God expressing uniquely as you. And you can understand it. You can own it. You can live from there and walk into your existence with authority. It wasn't just the tools of focus, choice, and the various tools we can use that allowed me to create this perfect body. It's soon to be 76 years old. What allowed me to create this was that I got to come to my life from being the essence of God. I remember when I started to own this, when I was still sick. They sent me to see a psychiatrist who said, you need to accept your human limitations. If you come work with me, I can accept your human limitations. You need to accept the things that you cannot change, Terry. Suffering is the pathway to peace, That quote. And when I looked at him and I said, I know what you guys believe. This isn't the first surgery or something. I'm like 20 spinal operations into this thing. I know what you guys believe. But I'm reading these books. And these books say there's a part of me that's not sick. These books say there's a part of me that's not afraid. And what these books say is that if I can get in touch with that aspect of me, if I can begin to own that who I truly am is that aspect of me, from there, I can learn how to create reality instead of face reality. And he said, you're living in a dream world. And I told him to go to hell and got up and walked out of his office. There may be people in your lives, even today, people who you think are in New Thought. There may be old beliefs, old habit patterns that when you stand there and say, I am the living Christ. And I like to use that word because, boy, if you're going to be confronted, stand in front of the mirror and look into your own eyes. You say, I'm holy. I'm God expressing uniquely as me. I am the living Christ. That's who you are. Ernest Holmes says this. He says on page 122, he says, you do not have to change. The power within you is the law, an aspect of God that is an all-powerful medium. And you have the power to use this medium any way you see fit. Except a list, of course, that some people, well, it's got to be for the highest and best good of everybody concerned. You can't use it for your own ego-centered priorities. You got to use it for this, and you can't use it for this, and you can't use it for this. Ernest Holmes says you can use it for anything you want. Jesus killed fig trees with this power. Not that I suggest we do that. Where do you set your limits? Who have you listened to that says, well, you're holy as long as you do this list? What if you and I gave up that part? What if we just gave that whole thing up and said, I am holy? I'm holy now. I'm a unique expression of this divine spark that runs through all of life. And I can know that. I can feel that. I can act and move and have my being from that. And that allows us to create reality. I'm not always on track. I hurt my back a couple of weeks ago, tweaked it. Woke up next morning, I was in a lot of low back pain, and I thought, I've done this before, and I worked on it to heal it, and it didn't heal. Then I worked on it some more, and it didn't heal. And then all the yeah buts came up. Oh my God, what if all these surgeries you've had for all these years are finally catching up with you? I'm not going to, yeah, but what about this? And yeah, but what about that? But I stuck in there. Ray was telling me, she said, what I admired about you is you'd wake up in pain and you'd say, well, it's better today than it was yesterday. And she said, you weren't moving like it was, but you continued to speak to what you were moving to. I talk in my book. Many of you have read my book. I said, somebody sent me a quote from this guy. It was on a little piece of paper, and it was from Dr. Ernest Holmes. I thought he was an MD. I didn't know about metaphysics, not from Ernest Holmes' point of view then. But what this little piece of paper said was, metaphysics is the conscious and practical application of spiritual thought force in the creation of solutions. This isn't about just dealing with your problems better. This philosophy, when you own who you are, you step into your life and create solutions. And then, of course, we get to the bottom line of this thing. And I got to realize after the several weeks of really being in significant pain, and I don't do pain well. I used to in the old days, but they gave you more pills in the old days. So now you have to do it on your own. Anyway, what I got was, Terry, you have not been using these principles. Not in your back. You use it in other areas, but your back has been so good for so long, you just sort of shoot from the hip. And now all of a sudden you're 60, about to be 66 years old, and you've got some stuff going on because of all the scar tissue and all that kind of thing that's in here. And honestly, if you'd have stayed using these tools and stretching and doing some of the exercises you're doing now, you wouldn't be in this place. I had lunch Friday with a friend of mine who's going back in for cancer surgery. He healed it 8 years ago. I worked with him 8 years ago. He got my Everybody Wins program, and he used it, and he went through all the stuff, but he didn't have any of the negative effects of chemo. He didn't have any of the negative effects with radiation because he was using the principles. And now his cancer's back. Or at least the doctors are saying he's got cancer in his neck. And so we were talking, and I said, have you been using the tools on how healthy you are? And he said, no. I did for the first year and a half. But after a while, it never bothered me, so I got on with other things. And now all of a sudden, he's got this problem. So both of us were sitting there sharing with each other. If we were consistent in using the tools, both of us believed we wouldn't be here now. See, the next thing is your God in form. That doesn't change your results. You still get your results from your current belief system. But what Ernest says is you must use this power to help yourself first. For you have to prove to yourself that the power is available and you can use it. Begin to contemplate this power answering your every need, supplying your every want, fulfilling your every wish. That's the freedom you have. And then finally, he says, if you are teaching these principles, on page 222 of Living the Science of Mind, if you are teaching these principles, you should insist that those to whom they are taught must use them, and they must never take no for an answer, for the law knows only to agree. So here we are, Sunday morning, talking about the same truth in maybe a little different way that's been talked about every Sunday here, what the classes are about, what your workshops are about, and that is that you're holy and you have the right and the authority to make your dreams come true. And Ernest on page 113 says, let us all accept the simple fact that the road to God is through the self, and that the pathway to an ever-increasing experience can be filled with joy. We can sing and dance as we go along. That's what you feel when they said, stand up and greet each other. I mean, up here you could see it. You're singing and dancing. There's this aura of joy about what we're up to. Another thing I like about Petra is she's not afraid to mention Jesus. There are some signs in my churches that don't talk about Jesus. Oh, we've got people here that, were beat up by the teachings of Jesus in their old church, so we don't talk about Jesus. Ernest Holmes says the whole purpose of metaphysics is to prove the teachings of Jesus. He taught a lot of things. And if you read the scriptures over and over, you find he taught different things to different people. But when they asked him, why have you come? Why are you here? What's your purpose for being here? He did that twice. And the first time he said, I have come that my joy might be in you and your joy might be full. The next time they asked him, why are you here? What is your purpose for being here, for coming into existence this time? And he said, I have come that you might have life and have it abundantly. That's the cornerstone of our teachings. Your God expressing uniquely as you, and you have the right and the authority to create a life filled with joy and abundance. And I invite you again to close your eyes. Here in this room, with our spiritual family, we feel safe. We feel powerful. And we feel free. And this morning, we recognize that we have been reminded. Our mind has been changed this morning. And as we walk from this holy sanctuary, we do so with a sense of peace, with a sense of grace, with a sense of wonder about human existence, God's playground. And we give thanks this morning for feeling God. Not only in our own self, we give thanks for feeling God in that person who's sitting next to you. We give thanks for holding the hand of God, for seeing the eyes of God. Today, we have been transformed. Today we have been reminded. And we accept that reminding. We move from here today knowing that we are a unique expression of the essence of life itself. We give thanks for this center, for the teachings of science of mind, for our marvelous teachers. And we give thanks for our fellow congregants. You are free. You are whole. And you are powerful. And that's just the way it is. Amen.